Okay, so we're trying again. We're trying again. I'm hoping that I'm back. I'm hoping that I'm live again and that this time we've got some volume. Sometimes for some reason things just don't work properly. So let's try again. There's a bit of a lag, so when I try and find myself it takes a minute. So let's just see. Yes, I can hear myself on my iPad, which must mean I've got some volume. Okay, I feel a bit hot and bothered. My craft room's been shut up all morning and it's really, really hot in here. I didn't dare put the fan on because I was worried that it was going to be so noisy for you. I've opened some windows. They seem to be putting up a shed next door, so I might have to shut them if it gets noisy, but let's hope not. All right, so just blue tacking down my grid paper. So what have I got to tell you today? There are 2 Stampin' Up offers which are still happening. The patterned paper offer is going until the end of June. So that's 15% off selected papers from the annual catalogue. If you're on my customer mailing list, you'll know all about that. I've been telling you about that for a little while. Lots of you have bought papers. I've bought papers. I've really stocked up because it's quite a good deal. The other offer that's on is if you decide you'd like to join Stampin' Up, then you get extra free items and you can choose those. They're not ones that are selected for you. I talk about joining Stampin' Up all the time. The thing I love about it best are all the people I've met, and I'm actually meeting up with people who have joined Stampin' Up with me in a few weeks' time. Online, I'm running a free crafting session for them. We're going to have a lot of fun together. And actually we meet up every month to craft together, which is just so nice. They're people I might well not have ever met had it not been for joining Stampin' Up, so I am very grateful for that. So if you'd like some new crafting friends, that's a great reason to join. If you'd like a discount on everything you buy, that's a great reason to join. If you would like the catalogues early and be able to order some of the items early, that's really fun. That's a perk that I enjoy a lot. And if you'd like to share crafting with other people, maybe make a bit of money on the side, then that might be a good reason for you to join. So until the end of the month, you will be getting let me get this right, £54 worth of products of your choice for a payment of £99. So that's a lot extra. It's always a good deal. It's always a good deal, but it's extra good during June. But you've only got until the 30th, which is about a week, isn't it? So don't wait too long if you think that's something you might be interested in. So those are the 2 main things that are happening. I've got a new sweet sampler to share with you, which I will show you in a minute. And then I'm going to do some paper piecing. Paper piecing I like to think of as colouring in, but using paper instead of pens or pencils. So it's colouring in your stamped images using scraps of paper, and you can use the tiniest pieces of paper. I've used little bits of paper that are only ½ an inch square for this. So it's a great way of using up your scraps. So I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. I'm going to move the camera down and show you the sweet sampler first of all. I'm just looking for some washi tape. I set my table up before I went off to puppy sit, but I'm not as organised actually as I might have been. It's a little bit harder for me to remember what to do now. I'm only doing this every other week instead of every week. Okay, so I'm going to cover you over. I'm going to turn the camera down, and then with any luck I will be able to line things up fairly quickly and get things straight and all the rest of it. I hope you haven't just hit a button. The only thing with touch screens is it's very easy to hit the wrong button, and until my iPad catches up, there we go, I can't see what you can see. So we've got the usual clips and leads out of the way. Let's move my box of tools out of the way, pull this a bit forward so you've got a bit more to see on my desk. And I've still tilted that the wrong way. I swear I had to tilt it the opposite way to the way I wanted, but apparently not. A bit more. Oh, for goodness sake, Sally, that's the wrong way again. Okay, let me find my clip to hold this microphone cable out of the way. And we'll get the charging cable out of the way as well, and we should be good. All right, so you can see a little sneak peek of this sampler here. So this is the Stargazing Suite. Now, for me, when I saw it in the catalogue, it was an obvious yes, because my daughter is mad keen on space. But if you're not mad keen on space, or you don't know anybody who is that you might like to craft for, then it might not be an obvious choice, but maybe I can change your mind. Let me show you the papers first of all. You get a quarter of a pack of the Stargazing paper, and if I put it round this way, then you can see the whole piece. So these are 12 inches by 6 inches. So one side of them is kind of planetary. So we've got, I don't know what this is here, a galaxy, a nebula, I've got no idea, but it's beautiful. And we've got these lovely rich jewel tones. Then there are two pieces, I will turn that one that way, which have got planets on them. So this one has got mostly turquoises and blues with some purples, and this one has got oranges, reds and purples. So these are gorgeous. And if you do like space, then the dies that coordinate with the suite will cut out many of the pieces on these papers. There's some really nice circle dies. And then that's the final piece, which is another one of these kind of galaxy ones. And then on the back, you've got patterns. So we've got stars. So this is the back of the planets one. So we've got galaxies on there. I mean, this would be beautiful for Christmas cards, let alone cards to do with space. It would just make a lovely background. A night sky, you could put animals across this, you know, die cut animals, you could put silhouettes of trees. So it doesn't have to be just space. And then you've got a couple of beautiful coloured sheets. These look like water has been dropped onto watercolour paper, so these are really usable. And then another one with stars. So although they're kind of space, they're also kind of not. You could use these with lots of things. They'll be great for men's cards, as well as children, and of course for anybody that has an interest in space. So you've got a quarter of a pack of the patterned paper, then you've also got a quarter of a pack of the holographic paper. So this is brand new. I don't know whether I can get the camera to do justice to it. Oh, I think maybe I can. Okay. So this one is beautiful. This is blues and purples and reds with some kind of green in there as well. This is silver with blues and greens and pinks and a kind of a wavy pattern on it, a bit like the Northern Lights. And then this one is silver, but the kind of the holographic bit in it is all the colours. So gorgeous. And this is called paper in the catalogue, but it's card weight. It's quite sturdy. So you can die cut that, or you can use it as layers. And then you have, I think it's 6 pieces. Yeah, 6 pieces of card, which is going to coordinate with your paper. So you've got Berry Burst, Basic Black, Blueberry Bushel, Lemon Lime Twist, Tahitian Tide, and Pumpkin Pie. And then I've also given you a half a pack of tinsel gems. So hold those up and hopefully you can see. Actually, let's put them on something black. The plastic might get in the way. I might have to take them out of the plastic. Let's see. Oh no, that's not too bad. So these look like somebody's dropped glitter into the resin before it's set. So you've got yellow, blue, green and pink on there, which is going to go beautifully with all the other colours. So you've got until the 7th of July to order that, which is a couple of weeks. If you live near me and you can collect it from me, that's going to cost you £12. And if you'd like me to post it, I'm happy to do that. That will cost you £14.50, which is just the cost of second-class postage and a board-backed envelope. I always throw in an ideas sheet, which is some photos of projects I've made using what's in your sampler. Just to give you a starting point for ideas, and you can always ask me for more information if you would like to know more about what I have made and how I've done it. So that's the Stargazing Suite sampler. It's absolutely beautiful. I'll just have some water, try and cool down and rehydrate a little bit. Okay, so paper piecing. I'm going to talk a little bit about it first. I made a few notes to go through. And then I'm going to do some paper piecing, and then at the end I'm going to show you a couple of samples of finished projects which use the paper piecing. All right, so first of all, scissors. You can't cut small pieces of paper easily, certainly not into shapes, without a good pair of scissors. You want them to be fairly small, you want them to be really sharp, and sharp right up to the tips. It makes life so much easier. And you don't want them to be sticky, okay? If you're like me, I use my scissors to cut all kinds of things, and they end up very, very sticky. There's lots of ways that you can get the sticky off. There are proprietary cleaners you can get. Sticky stuff remover is a really good one. I like to use isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol, and I actually use the little wipes that you would use if you were going to give somebody an injection. They're just the right size for cleaning scissors. When you open up the pack, they're wet straight away, so I'm not fiddling around with a big bottle of alcohol. And it takes the sticky off beautifully, and I unstick my scissors probably 2 or 3 times a week because it's just so quick and easy to do, so they're always cutting really nicely. If you don't have a nice small sharp pair of scissors, our paper snips, honestly, I can't recommend them enough. They are lovely scissors. All scissors are not made equal. These are lovely ones. So that's the first thing to say. The next thing is to talk about stamps. Now, ideally you want an open shape of stamp, and by that I mean something like this, which is line art, rather than something like this, which has been mostly filled in. So when I stamp these solid images, let's say I stamp with using a pink ink, I'm going to get really solid pink flowers. If I stamp these, I'm going to get just an outline in pink. And that means that when I stamp this on patterned paper, I'm going to get the pattern of the paper showing within the outline. I could use a solid stamp like this, but most of the pattern on the paper is going to be covered over by the ink which is filling in these solid petals. So a nice open stamp is a really good idea for this. When I looked through my stamps ready for this session, I was surprised actually at how few open stamps I've got. I used to have a lot. They must have all retired. That must mean it's time to go shopping, which is never a bad thing. But this is a really good set, and the set that I'm going to show you in the second demonstration is another open set which works brilliantly for paper piecing. So have a look at your stamps, find some stamps that have got a nice open shape. And you are going to be cutting the shapes of your images out by hand, so don't pick anything that is too complex. So on this set, for instance, these leaves are beautiful, and these leaves are a very simple shape to cut out, but this one would be much more complicated because it's very small and it's very wiggly in and out. And in fact, on the sample finished project I'll show you, I haven't even used that leaf, I just haven't cut it out at all. So you don't want them to be too complicated either. In terms of ink colour, mostly I use Memento Black. It's a water-based ink, it dries very fast, and it works on pretty much any coloured paper, whether it's a pale colour or a dark colour of paper. However, if you're using a really pale patterned paper, then you might prefer to use a paler ink, and depending on the colours in your paper, that might be a green or a blue or a grey, a red. Just experiment. If you're using paper scraps for this, which is a great use of your scraps, then pick one of them and stamp on it just as a test piece and see if you like the colour of the ink. In terms of choosing your patterned paper, you want something that doesn't have too big a scale pattern, but equally it does depend on your stamps. So if I go back to my Petal Park stamps, these are quite small flowers. If I put my scissors next to them, they're really quite small. If I use a pattern of paper which has got huge big flowers on it like this, then I'm not really going to get the effect of different colours and different shapes on such a small image. So I'll be much better off using the one that I'm going to show you in a minute, something like this, which has got a much smaller scale pattern on it. Just hold that up. So this is a scrap of the masterfully made paper, which is stunning, and the patterns on it are quite small scale. I love the back. Here they've torn up pieces of paper that are in the pack, glued them down, and then rendered that into paper. So this is not a collage I've made, this is flat. This is just photographed basically. It's really fun. So that's choosing your paper. And as I've said already, you can use tiny pieces. You know, this little flower is minute. You only need the tiniest piece of paper for that. And I'll talk a little bit about cutting, I'm sure, when I am cutting out. But normally if I'm cutting out a shape with scissors, I say cut just outside the line, and then that little border of white or whatever card you've stamped it on, helps to somehow not make any wiggles in your cutting out, any little mistakes you might make so noticeable, because you've got the complete outline of your image. However, for paper piecing, you want to cut on the line of the image. You don't want to cut it off. Ideally, you want to kind of cut halfway down the line, and then when you come to stick your piece down, as you'll see in a minute, any wiggles on this are disguised because you've got some black outline on your paper and some black outline on the image you're gluing it to, and the two just meld together and it's perfect. But as I say, I will talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So let's get started then. I've got two of the images from my Petal Park stamp set here. I've got this one with the 3 flowers and this one with the leaves, and these are the open images. I'm not going to use the solid ones. I've got some scraps of paper from that Masterfully Made pack. And I have a piece of card here to work on. So the first thing I'm going to do is to stamp down my base image that I'm going to colour in. Now with these stamps, when you stamp the leaves, there is a gap in the middle where the flowers fit perfectly. And if you cut the flowers out, which I'm going to do and almost sort of 3D them, then they will also fit within that space. So for now, I'm just going to stamp these leaves. And I've just spotted what I haven't done, which is I need to mask off. So I'm going to clean my stamp and start again. Do you remember me saying about those little tiny weeny leaves that were too fiddly to cut out? Yeah. Okay, so I'm actually going to put a little bit of washi tape over those. I'm not going to cut them out, so I don't want to stamp them. Hoping they're not going to come out. It looks like my stamp cleaner needs a bit of a wash. There we are. So I'm just going to stick some washi tape over the sections that I don't want to stamp, which in this case are those very fiddly little leaves. And this is a very quick and easy masking technique, and what it does is it stops the ink from going on to some of the areas in the stamp that I don't want to actually come out on my project. It's so hot my washi tape won't even stick down. I don't know what it's like where you are. It's really, really baking here. There is a lovely breeze, but as I say, my craft room has been shut up all morning. It's very hot in here. Right, so the important thing to remember when you're masking like this is to take off those bits of tape. They're covered in ink, and that's going to go down on my card if I don't remember to remove the tape before I stamp. Put those straight in my bin. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp. Which way shall I stamp? That way, I think. There we are. So that's my base that I'm going to work with. So I'm now going to stamp my flowers, and I'm going to have pink flowers. So I've got some scrappy little pieces of patterned paper here. Here's a tiny little one, because I wanted to show you that you don't have to have a piece that's big enough for all the images. So this is a triple flower, but they are individual flowers. I'm going to cut them out separately and they would fit beautifully on there, but actually let's use up some of these little, you know, less useful scraps. So it doesn't matter if I ink up more than one flower, but I'm just going to put that one flower on there like that, and then I've got 2 more flowers. I don't know if I can fit them both on one strip or if I'll need a couple of strips. Let's see. Oh, I might just be able to get them on there if I'm careful. There we are. So that's my 3 flowers, and I've got lots of pieces left for next time. And then I need some leaves. Now I did cut out some of the leaves because there's probably a limit to how much you want to watch me cutting out paper. So for these leaves, this one has got typeface on one side and then it's got another torn paper collage on the back. And this is Pretty Peacock, and the one I'm using for the flowers is Bubble Bath. So I've stamped those, I've cut them out. I might need one or two more, we'll see in a minute. Let me just set those aside, but I am now going to cut out these little flowers. Just looking, no comments yet. If you've got anything you want to ask me, please do. So I wonder if I can get this so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to cut on the line, not inside it and not outside it. And I'm going to turn the paper, not my scissors. So can you see I'm moving the paper? And I'm opening and closing the scissors, but I'm not turning my scissors like that. I'm going to have to move it down here to where it's more comfortable to me for working. But that is the key to fussy cutting. If you found fussy cutting difficult, or you don't like it, because you don't like the results you get, then it may be because you're turning your scissors and not the paper. So as I shut the scissors, let me just start a new petal. So I'm going to open the scissors, grip the paper, and then I'm just going to close the blades and turn the paper at the same time. And with a little bit of practice, you will probably find it is effortless. Alright, so if I lift these up and show you, this flower still has an outline all the way round, and you can see on my bit I'm going to throw away, I've also got some outline because I tried to cut down the middle of the outline of my image. Okay, let me quickly cut these two others for you, and then we'll actually start the paper piecing. This is all kind of preparation really. Now I do love fussy cutting. I know not everybody does, but I will sometimes stamp a whole pile of flowers or whatever it is I want to cut out, and then I'll sit down and listen to the television. I can't say I'll watch the television, and I'll just cut them out. I find it very relaxing, and then I've got a whole pile of pieces ready to make projects with. So these are quite wiggly shapes, but you can still do it by turning the paper. Okay, there's my second flower. And let's do my third one. Now these are slightly sketchy images, and sometimes you have to have a little bit of guesswork as to where the line would be if it was there, because there isn't a line, but that's okay, you can do that. In most cases on this particular one there are some dots and dashes and gaps in between them, but as long as I join them up I get a nice smooth line. So somebody told me today that the weather is going to break next week. I don't know if that's true. And even if it's been forecast, it doesn't mean it is going to. I must admit, I wouldn't mind some cooler nights. It's been very hot and humid at night where I live. So that would be quite nice. And actually the garden could do with a few days of really good rain, I must say. It's taking a lot of watering at the moment. And the plants much prefer rainwater to tap water. Our water butt is dry, so they're having to get mains water, which they don't prefer. There we are. So that's my three flowers, and then I've got my leaves. So now all I need to do is to glue the pieces down in the right places. So these leaves are a little bit trickier perhaps, because I can't remember where they came from. That spray looks like it came from there. I think that one is from there. I think I might need a couple of leaves. I think I might be short. Might have to cut out a couple more to finish this. Oh, hang on, is that one hiding underneath? I don't know where this one's from. Not not there. It doesn't fit there. I'm not very good at jigsaws. Can you tell? I think it might go there. I think this one is there. So I'm missing that one. That's weird, isn't it? Perhaps I didn't stamp it or didn't cut it out. Let's just quickly stamp that, otherwise I won't be able to finish the whole thing. So I need to work out which one it is, because this is not a symmetrical stamp. So it's that end. It's actually just that one leaf there I need. Oops. I've just dropped that stamp inky side down on my desk. So it's just this leaf here to do. And these leaves are actually very easy to cut out. There we are. Okay. So I'm going to do the leaves first, because the flowers don't have a stamped image to kind of fit exactly onto. They're a bit more freeform for this set. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue within the leaf shapes, and then I'm going to just glue on the appropriate piece. Now, I don't use tweezers, but you absolutely could use tweezers if you find them easier for this kind of thing. And I'll lift this up to show you once these are all glued down. This one I'm attaching now, actually the leaves have no base at all, so when I cut them out I extended the base a little bit, and that will be covered over by a flower, just because I needed some kind of end point for the leaves and there wasn't one on the image. There we go. Oops, that one's moved. Let's push that over. Doesn't look like I got it right. There we go, it goes that way around instead. That's better. Now, I don't know how well you will see it on the camera, but this beautiful pale bluey green paper has got like a distressed typeface on it, and so my little leaves have got the stamped outline of the veins and so on them, and are coloured this lovely blue-green, and they also have the interesting pattern of the typeface. Let me just lift that up. So hopefully you can see the pattern. I don't know how close I can get it. There we are. And those are my leaves. So the stamp also has these lovely little spatters on it, which is really nice. So my bone folder's gone walkabout, so I'm just going to use my scissors to just gently curl these. Actually, I know exactly where my bone folder is. I took some crafting over to my sister's this morning, and my bone folder is in my bag with all that, which I haven't had a chance to unpack. Never mind. I don't need it for its proper purpose. I only wanted it just to help curl the leaves. And I'm actually just going to pop a little bit of glue on the back, because I just want these to be attached, but I don't need them stuck all the way down. I like the petals kind of poking up a little bit. There we are. And there is my finished piece. Let me see if I can get it actually under the camera so you can see it. That might be better. There we are. So we've got the pale pink flowers, we've got the pale green leaves, we've got all the outline and the detail on the stamp. and it's just a completely different look to if I had stamped that and coloured it in. I love my stamping blends, I love my watercolour pencils, but this is a completely different way of doing things. And then of course, what do you do with that? Well, here's one I made earlier, and I've written out the measurements for you in case you wanted those as well. So this is the same stamps, it's the same paper, but I've used different designs. So here's my finished card. This time I've used much stronger colours from the paper pack. Let me lift it up really close first so that you can hopefully see the paper piecing, and then I'll talk you through the rest of it. So much stronger green and much stronger berry burst flowers. So I've used a berry burst card base. I stamped the same flowers you've just seen me use on another layer of the card. Then I created the paper pieced section just as you've just seen. I added some extra spatters from the stamp here. There's this little one here that adds little ink spatters. Added some gems and a thank you. I often make thank you cards on this, as you know. I send a lot of thank you cards to my customers, so if I've got the opportunity to make an extra one, I do. So if I put that down and I put the measurements next to it, hopefully you will find that helpful if you're the kind of person that likes measurements. Thank you, Belinda. Hello Belinda, and thank you. I'm glad you like that one. Let me leave that there. I'm just going to drink some water and clean my stamp. This masterfully made paper is absolutely beautiful. I will give you a closer look at it on another occasion, but believe you me, if you order some in the offer that's on at the moment, you're not going to be disappointed. It's absolutely stunning. Shall I just read through those numbers just once very, very quickly? So I used the Petal Park stamps, the masterfully made paper. My stamped layer here in the centre, the white one, is 3.5 inches square. I've matted it on some pretty peacock when I've just went up 1/8 of an inch, so that's 3 5/8 square. The stamped berry burst layer here is 4 3/4 of an inch square, and the card base was 9 3/4 of an inch by 4 7/8 of an inch, and I scored it at 4 7/8 of an inch. My envelopes are only just over 5 inches square, so that's why I've done a funny size. Ideally I'd have made a 5-inch square card, but I was worried it wasn't going to fit in the envelope with the extra layers. And then my insert is 4 5/8 of an inch square. So that is that one. And now I'm going to show you a second one. I'm actually going to show you the sample card before I do the paper piecing, because I'm kind of attacking it in a different way, and I think it'll make more sense if you know where we're going with it. So the stamp set I'm using is this one, In the Moment. This is a fantastic set for paper piecing because you've got these 3 images here, and you've got lots of items of clothing, you've got cushions and blankets, we've got a little dog here even, we've got kind of mugs, we've got a glass of wine. So there's lots of things here that you can stamp and then cut out separately from paper. There are several sets in the catalogue in this style, so if you don't have this one, then you may have one of the other ones, or we might see another one that appeals to you. So let me show you the finished project first this time. I'll lift it up to show you some more detail. So this time, instead of stamping on white card my initial image and then adding my pieced paper pieces over the top, I've stamped on patterned paper. So I found this beautiful kind of summer sky with clouds in the Fresh as a Daisy pack. Let me lift it up and try and show you a little bit more detail. Not sure how close I can get. A bit more. You'll lose some of the sky, but there we go. So her hat and her dress are paper pieced, and the other pieces actually are cut out separately, but I've coloured them in. I've stamped them on white card and then coloured them in because I didn't want patterns on her arms. I just wanted, you know, skin. So I will show you how I did that. The card base here I've stamped with this image from Artistically Inked. This is lovely if you just want something in the background that doesn't have to look like anything. So I didn't want flowers or anything, I just wanted some texture on there. And the card base was too big for one of my embossing folders. I didn't want to put a join of embossed pieces in the middle, so that was the answer, to just stamp some texture on there. So let me get started and show you what I did. Again, I'm not going to make the whole card. Okay, I hope you didn't hear that shouting. Putting up this shed later, and next door rather, and they're obviously coming up against some problems. Right, so I've got a piece of this beautiful blue and white paper. It's got this pattern on the back, so as I say, it's from the Fresh as a Daisy pack. That's in the special offer, so if you don't have any, nab some with 15% off. And I'm going to cut it to size properly later. I just wanted to kind of get this in the right proportions on it before I cut the bottom off, and you'll see why in a minute. So I'm using Memento ink again. That'll give me a nice dark outline, and I'm going to have it, yeah, this way up. I've got kind of more clouds there, and this time I've got a girl on a windowsill looking out. Okay, there we go. So I've used a different image, and I'm going to use again a combination of paper piecing and colouring. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to colour the window frame using a blend. So this is Dark Night of Navy, and I could have cut the frame out separately, but it's very narrow pieces. I'd have had to get my craft knife and ruler out to kind of cut out these areas in the middle, and I thought I was going to get a better result with this. And because it's darker than the paper that I'm colouring on, I've got no show through of the pattern. So if you're doing this yourself with different paper, you may need to just have a little practice on a scrap. Try your colours. Sometimes the paper acts almost like a resist, and the ink you're laying down sort of moves away a bit. It's less likely to happen with the blends because they're alcohol based, but if you're using a water based marker, you may find that that's what happens. And just a reminder that if you aren't using stamping blends, if you're using Stampin' Right markers, remember to use a permanent ink. StazOn is the best with those, otherwise your outline that you've carefully stamped will bleed into your colour, and nobody wants that. Okay, so that's dealt with the outline. So we've now got her looking through a window at a lovely blue sky. So now I'm going to stamp all the different bits of that image again onto my scraps of paper. So I've got a couple of pieces here from the Countryside Inn set, which I thought would work really well for her shirt and trousers. So I don't need to ink up the whole stamp. Let's stamp this in. So I want her shirt on this one, and then I want her trousers on this pattern, so I don't know how well you can see that. It's a darker paper, but we have got the detail of the image on there, and this is quite a busy one, so again it's a little bit harder to see, but hopefully you can. I'm just trying to work out if I've stamped enough of her arm I don't think I have. I don't think I've got all her sleeve. I'm just going to do that one again. I was trying to economise on my paper a bit too enthusiastically. Let's stamp it again over here. There we go, that's better. And I'm going to do the cushions on this green paper. So again, I only really need to ink up the cushion section. And stamp that. So now I'm going to do a little bit of cutting out. Once I've done that, I'm also going to do some stamping on some scraps of white card, because I am going to colour in, as I said earlier, her arms and her feet. And I've got this one here for reference, because sometimes when you only got part of the image, you look at it and you think, I don't know what I need to cut out. So this is the cushion that I'm cutting here. And she's got her feet on the cushions. So we've got kind of feet in front of the cushions. So I've got a bit that goes there, and then I've got another bit coming out the bottom behind her legs, which is very small, but that's okay. There. It's probably too small for you to easily see, but let me lie them on here and then hopefully you can. I'm actually going to stick those down as I go, because some of these pieces are really small. So that's my cushion. So let's just stick those down, especially that little tiny piece is very small. That's going to go on the floor, and then I won't know that it's part of my design. There we are. Okay, so we've got her cushions. Let's do her trousers next. That's probably the most logical. Much easier to cut out as well. There we are. Let me show you that piece. And of course you've got all the line detail, the crease marks in the fabric and so on that are in the stamped image, are on the patterned paper. So you get these beautifully detailed pieces of patterned paper with both the patterning and the inking on them. So let's stick her trousers in place. Okay, and her shirt is next. Now I need to make sure I cut the right one out with the whole of the arms on it. This is quite a busy section of the stamp, and it's quite busy paper, so just have to do my best to not snip off anything crucial. Again, I'm just checking back on this to make sure that I think I've just cut a piece off. I might have to I might have to add a little piece in. So this is all absolutely fine, but I've just cut off her other arm, or the top of her other sleeve I should say, but that's okay. So let me work out where I am on this. You won't be able to see this at all. There we go. So that's that section, and then I just need one on the other side. Unfortunately, the one that I stamped and missed a bit off earlier has got the piece I need. So we can just use that one. There, it's tiny, really tiny. So I'll stick these on and then I'll show you. They don't kind of make sense on their own, but once you get them onto the stamped image, they look like what they are. There we are. So now we've dressed her, we've got her cushions there. I'm also going to cut the mug out of the navy piece, and I thought I might have to stamp it again, but actually it so happens that it's fallen onto a piece of this paper that doesn't have any of the flowers on it, which is exactly what I wanted. So I've just got to cut around her hand, and this is a little bit fiddly. You could always colour this in like I did on the wine glass on the previous project, rather than cut out a piece of paper that is this small. You really don't have to do that, but I like a challenge. Okay, so there's her mug. Alright, so we need her head, her arms and her feet. Next, so I'm going to stamp those onto some white card. This again is just a little scrappy piece. And I'm going to colour those in. So I have my ivory stamping blends for her skin, and she's got a little bit of midriff showing there. Then she's got her arms and hands here. And then her ankles and feet down here. So that's those there. I'm going to colour her hair, and this is one of the skin tone markers. This is 300. Now I could easily have cut her hair out of paper as well, but I didn't have any that seemed appropriate, so instead I'll cut it out of card that I've coloured in myself to get it the right colour. I've got light boho blue here, which I'm going to use for her hair slide, and I'm also going to colour in the windowsill here. So I'm not really doing any shading with this, I'm just colouring in. There we are. So now I've got bits and pieces on here to cut out. So this feels a bit brutal, but I'm going to cut her head out. I'm going to kind of leave the end of her hair a little bit kind of wiggly if I can. Rather than try to follow the lines, which is kind of not really possible with a sketch style stamp, but the rest is just a simple shape to cut. There we are. Let's pop that in place. Then we have her arms and hands. So I don't need the mug because I already madly cut that out of a little piece of paper, but I absolutely could have just coloured this mug in and be cutting that out with her hands, which, let's be honest, would be far easier. So although this is small, the shapes actually are not very difficult to cut. And I like it because I can then use this patterned paper background. If I wasn't using a patterned paper background, I could of course have just coloured in. If I'd stamped it onto white card, I could have just coloured in that card. But I do love that kind of blue sky through the window. So this is her midriff, and it's a teeny tiny triangle. So I'm going to glue that down now, otherwise we all know that will get lost. It's so tiny. There we are, but it does actually make all the difference having it on there. And then last of all, we've got the windowsill and her feet. Which I can cut out all in one piece. I could probably have coloured in the windowsill actually on the patterned paper I've been using. I think that would have worked fine. But as I'm cutting out her feet anyway, it makes sense to do it all in one piece. So when you're looking at your stamps and trying to decide what to do, just kind of name to yourself what you've got. So in this one, you know, I've got window, I've got windowsill, I've got trousers, I've got shirt, I've got mug, and so on. And then by breaking it down into all the little pieces and parts, I then find it much easier to decide what papers I want to use. Are there any bits where I want to actually use card that I've coloured in, and so on. So there we are. So that is slightly bizarrely the windowsill and her feet, but it all magically comes together like that. So now I just need to glue down these extra pieces, and this is finished, ready to make into a completed project. And it does feel a bit strange cutting out body parts, but once you've got them glued down, it's worth it. And there we are, that is the completed piece. So now all I need to do is decide how high up I want to cut it, how low down, which is why I did it on a bigger piece to start with. I could stamp a sentiment down here or up here, add embellishments and things, and then come up with a finished card along the lines of this one. And I've got the measurements for this card as well, which I'll put next to it in just a moment. Alright, so let me move that one I've just made. Bring back this one. So I used In the Moment stamps. I used Artistically Inked, that's the one I used on the background. I used Fresh as a Daisy paper and Inked Botanicals paper for the dress on this. On this one, her clothes were from Countryside Inn and the cushions are from the Stargazing paper. That's the one in the sweet sampler I showed you at the beginning. Then in terms of the measurements, the paper piece layer is 3 inches by 4 inches. Then I cut a layer of Azure Afternoon card 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 inches. This piece is crushed curry and I used one of the basics embossing folders. You'll find those in the online exclusive section of my online shop, which is on my website at sallybowman.stampinup.net. And the card base is 10 inches by 7 inches and I scored it at 5 inches, which gives me a 7 by 5 card base. And then the insert is 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 of an inch. So there we are. Let me find the first project, pop them both there for a minute, and then I will just bring up the camera and say bye-bye to you. Thank you, Belinda. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, it's a great technique for the stamp set. If I'm going to do paper piecing, I almost always reach for this In the Moment one. It's the only one of these kind of figures that I have, but I know there are others in the catalogue. And it just works so well. Whether or not you go into a lot of detail as I have and, you know, cut out and colour in the skin and things, or if you just stamp it on white card and colour in and then just add, you know, some accessories. It just works however much you do, so I love it. I'm glad you liked it. Right, let me cover you over, bring you back